Normally when I recite majlis, I don't get many comments, but on that day, after I finished the majlis, quite a few people came and said that, this is the kind of thing we need for our children. So today I didn't have enough time because we found out very late that Sayyid Qazwini is not coming, so to prepare for this was a little bit tough. But inshallah, we'll touch a subject that I hope will be of benefit, to everyone, inshallah. Now, I want to tell the young people here that, listen, I am passionate about the community, and I think all the people who are in charge, of the community are also passionate about protecting our kids and creating a good learning environment. So if anybody of you has any questions about anything or you need to speak with someone, I am available, as well as the people, the elders in the community are also available. I say to people, they don't come to me to ask me about counseling for marriage, because even I've been married for 35 years, or approximately 35 years, I don't consider myself as an expert in that field. The thing is, if you go to Qum and Najaf and these places, to become an alim, 35 years, you can become a maraje or at least a mujtahid. But in marriage, 35 years, you are still learning. You never get to the end because it's a long learning lesson. So the thing that I wanted to say is that we are approachable. Anybody who has any questions, you can come and ask, inshallah. The topic that I want to focus on today is that in normal societies, when we are angry at somebody has offended us in some way or another, the natural reaction when we want to have some sort of a revenge on them, or we want to go against them, without getting physical, we will shed out insults to them. We will do things to humiliate them. We will say things, we will spread rumors about people, we will gossip about them, we will do things, and any time there is that we see that person who has hurt me is being humiliated in the public, it somehow makes me feel good. This is not the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but this is the natural tendency, in society. It shouldn't surprise us that on the day of Ashura, after all the shuhada, had been martyred, what was the thing that Umar Asad, by the order of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, did? They put the dead bodies on the ground and trod the horses over them. They were dead bodies. What was the purpose of riding horses over them and creating more injury to these bodies? Not only that, they severed the heads of the shuhada and put it on the point of spears and paraded with it from Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham. And the idea behind that was you can't do more than kill somebody. You can't do more than death. But the idea here was to humiliate them and to humiliate the family of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So in a situation like that, when you are helpless and somebody has the total freedom to go out there and humiliate you, you can't do anything. The thing is, that we should really think about, is that when Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha was asked this question by Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad in the Darul Imara in Kufa. So what do you think about all this? What do you think about what Allah did? What did Sayyida Zainab say? You all know this. It's a very famous statement. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. She saw the humiliation. She saw all the bloodshedding. She saw all what we would normally say as cruel behavior. And she saw the humiliation. But to her, this was a complete disconnect. And she said, I did not see anything but beauty. So the humiliation that was meted out by Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, and later on even by Yazid, they did not succumb to this humiliation. They remained focused. And the reason, my dear brothers and sisters, one can argue, is that the reason why they remained focused was that their self-worth their self-value was not determined by these animalistic behavior. They were much higher than that. Their belief system, their personal investment about how they measured themselves was at a level that was much higher than all this nonsense by other calculations that they were seeing. And this is something that you and I should learn from it. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. In that very famous statement, when he was asked to pledge allegiance to Yazid, and I'm quoting here, what did Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam say? There was, besides, the mission that he had proposed that he was going to do, what did he say? He said that death with dignity is better than living with disgrace. A dignified life, is better than, death is better than the disgrace that these people are coming out. And on the day of Ashura, he repeated this again. He says, death is better than embarking on a life of indignity. There is an underlying tone and an underlying statement in what was being said by Sayyidah Zainab and Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is, inshallah, the topic that I want to address today. And I really want our young people to pay attention to that because it's really important in the environment that we are living in today. And that is, what is the self-worth of, what is our self-worth? What is our self-esteem? What it should be connected with. I find many a times, even in my office, I have young people who come and they act like they are losers. And the reason why they act like they are losers is because somehow in the environment that they are living in, they have been told that they are. They feel insufficient about themselves, about the lives that they are living. And whatever values that the society has set to be considered of somebody of value, they are not meeting that standard. And they feel low about themselves. Not only that, when they go home and they are speaking with their parents, some parents, not all parents, and I hope we don't have parents like that over here, they compare them to the kids of other families. Look at that so-and-so's son, or look at that so-and-so's daughter. He's studying medicine. So-and-so is becoming an engineer. So-and-so has become, whatever. And they're constantly comparing their own child with somebody else's child, making that child feel like they are not performing the way they should perform. Because the standard that is being created, even that is coming from somebody who they love and respect, and who are their mentors, their own parents, are setting standards that they, for whatever reason, are unable to achieve. And they start measuring themselves accordingly. And this causes them to fall into what we call a vicious circle, that every time they go out and they are unable to do something, or they fail into doing something, it feeds upon themselves in a negative way. And they become somebody who are unable to achieve anything in life. This environment, dear brothers and sisters, is something that you and I have to be careful, because the standards that are being set are set by values that are not consistent with the teaching of Islam. And I cited the verse of the Quran from Surah As-Sad. And this is the story where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating Prophet Adam. And it's not a tafsir of it, but sometimes when you read the stories of the Prophet in the Quran, it makes us think. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? It says, إِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ, it says, when your Lord said to the angels, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرٌ مِّن طِينٍ, that I am going to create man from teen, from mud. So this is the first thing that I'm going to do. The first stage of my creation of mankind, you and me. Because when he created Prophet Adam, Prophet Adam, we are Yabna Adam, so we are children of Prophet Adam. So the first stage of our creation says, I've created them from teen, from mud. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ, Allah is saying, then when I proportion him, I make him balanced, I make him perfect. وَنَفَقْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, and then I blow from within my spirit, فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. Then he's telling all the angels that I want you to go into prostration after I have created Adam. Now, let's just analyze this incident from the perspective of the perfection of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Teen, the mud that is being talked about here, is the material of creation of basically all the living creatures. So in that sense, we are equal to all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation in the first stage of creation. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that then I proportioned him. I made him balanced. I made him perfect. Not only that, I blew part of my spirit into him. And when I do that, all of you fall into prostration towards this creation. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had asked mankind, us, mortals, the vision of mortals in this dunya, and we can measure it, is limited. What we know, what we see, what we learn is everything within our perspective. But with us, when we talk about angels, angels are much more mobile than us. They visit the heavens. Their span of observation is much larger, much more profound than the perspective of humans. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, based upon what I have created, all of which you malaika have seen is nothing compared to what I have created here. Man, human being, fall down into prostration. And then all of the angels, and it says, kulluhum. There was not a single angel that didn't do it. Kulluhum. They all fell into sujood. And it says, illa iblis, besides shaitan. And then the story goes and continues from there. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not going to recite the Arabic verses of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and shaitan have a conversation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking the shaitan, what prevented you from doing this sajda that I instructed you to do? What does shaitan say? You all know. It says, I am better in creation than him. You have created him from mud, and you have created me from fire. And in shaitan's measurement, mud is inferior to the fire, and that's why I am afzal, I am better than him, and that's why I did not perform the sujood. But shaitan did not address the two other stages of creation. He did not go into the stage of balancing and creating perfection, and he did not go into the stage of فَنَفَقْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, that I blew one of my spirits, from within my spirits into him. That is what elevated the perfect creation that Allah subhanahu was talking about. And then later on, shaitan says, فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, because you misguided me, I'm going to basically misguide them. But he only misguides on the basis of the teen, because he cannot touch the other two elements of creation of mankind. So what I'm trying to draw out of this is that you and I have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us perfectly. There is no defect in us. He's not created us equal in terms of our talents and our abilities and so on and so forth. But He's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nothing imperfect about Him. So within the perspective and within the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, each and every one of us has been created perfect. But if you and I now start considering myself as something that is low or something that is inferior or something that is incapable of someone, that is somehow not perfect in any kind of a sense, we are now blaming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. And that's not the case. This is coming to us from shaitani influence on our minds. It's not coming from anything else. It's coming from Satan's influence of ourselves. And he insinuates other people to speak about us, to talk about us in ways that we start measuring ourselves, in a lowly kind of a way. Please recite a salawat. So when we embark on this social intiqam, social revenge, social aggression against people who insult us or who make us feel bad, we indulge in this teeny or this lowest form of our, lowest segment of our creation, when we start attacking people. I remember once, many years ago, I was in my office. The young man came to my office, and we were talking about another young fellow. Both really smart, intelligent, productive human beings, good people. And he came and said to me that, can you please talk to this guy's father? Because his father doesn't seem to answer. What's the problem? He says he is in love with a girl that lives here in Albany. This happened here in Albany. It's a true story, by the way. I'm not making it up. He's in love with a girl here in Albany, and he wants to marry her. But his parents are not agreeing. And the reason why they are not agreeing to this marriage, there was nothing wrong with the girl. She was educated. I mean, all the things that we talk about in terms of good qualities, she had them. But the reason why the parents were rejecting her was because by status, she was not equal to that family. That barabari, we call that. So in terms of that, she was not equal to them. So they would not allow the son to marry her. You know what happened? He went back to his home country and married another girl, and he brought her back to the US after going through all the immigration and whatnot. He brought her home. They were living, there was a joint family. He was living with his parents. So he left her with his parents, and he was going out with the other girl, and the rest is history. So the parents, again, were not judging another human being by their humanity or by the kinds of things that they need to judge her by, but they were more focused on this creation and superiority and inferiority type of things based on standards that they created, by their own selves. So I'm coming back, to the young people today, and that is that yes, we all need to seek education to better ourselves. Education, according to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, is something, you've all heard this story, is something that is incumbent upon every male and female from cradle until their grave. We've all heard this hadith. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, education is something that we all need to go for. But what are you getting yourself educated for? Are you getting educated to rise your status in life or in the society? Or are you going after education to actually expand your knowledge and become a better human being? These are the questions you, my dear brothers and sisters, you and I have to answer these. Because for some reason, if you graduate from college and you have a degree in something, we have set standards to degrees and education, in terms of, the best thing you can be is, for example, a neurosurgeon or something along those lines. And then it's, something else. And then if you start looking at, for example, the arts, sociology and psychology and all of these things, they are the inferior part of what we term as education. Now, it's a whole different question of which kind of profession is going to bring food on the table. That's a discussion on its own. But if a young boy or a young girl wants to do something on their own and they have a deep interest in something like that, they should be able to pursue it. And it should not be a measure of their worthiness in the society. One of my friends who is a sheikh in London, some parents came to him and they said to him, the sheikh, you have to talk to our son. My son is going crazy. He says, what's wrong with him? He says, no, you have to have a meeting with him and you have to talk with him because, he's not listening to us. So now the sheikh was thinking that, oh my God, maybe he wants to marry a girl who is not a Shia or is from another religion, or maybe there's something else that's going on with him. So he says, okay, I'll have a talk with him. So he sits down with this guy and he says to him, your parents are complaining, about you to me, and I want to find out, what's wrong with you? I mean, what's going on? What's the discussion? That's all. So you know what the young man says? He says, my parents have a problem because I want to become a chef, a professional chef. And they are not agreeing with it because, it says, he can make the samosas and biryanis when he's at home. But that's not what we want him to be known outside this environment, because a chef is not considered a person of value in the society that we live in. But that's what he wanted to do, and that's what his interest was. So the sheikh said to him that, this is your passion, this is what you want to do, and what is your plans with this? He says, oh sheikh, we have a problem in the society where now our young people are becoming professionals, and they want to go out to dine and have meetings, and they want to go to restaurants that serves good food, which is halal. And I want to be owner of one of these restaurants where this Muslim businessmen and businesswomen can come and they can eat good halal Italian, Chinese, Mexican, or whatever it is, food, that they can. That's my ambition. That's what I wanted to become. But again, in the society, in the communities that he was living in, the idea of becoming a chef, a cook, was not something that was palatable or was something that they could not digest. And because he was becoming a chef, the parents were also measuring their status in that society, because they would feel ashamed to tell people that our son is becoming a chef. This, my dear brothers and sisters, is a very wrong approach. Self-worth is what you want to be, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created each and every one of us, with certain qualities, certain abilities, and certain things. As long as it is halal, go and be whatever you want to be, as long as it is something that can build your self-esteem. Life is becoming hard in America right now. I'll tell you the facts. Okay, today, whereas back in the day, a person who made $50,000, $60,000 a year, they could support a family in those days. Today, it's hard. Rents are going up. The cost of groceries is going up. Gas is going up. I mean, you all know inflation is really kicking in. It's becoming more and more and more expensive to live in these societies. It's 100%, out there. But becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer, becoming a lawyer, I'm saying if that's what you want to be, go and become that by all means. But if you are not capable, if it is not in your interest, there are other professions that you can pursue that can give you good earnings. And one of the other things is that for the parent to be able to say that my child is going to Harvard, or my child is going to NYU or some other universities, Baba, how are you paying for it? Oh, you have student loans. And they put themselves into debt for having their kids pursue an education which they are not interested in. Oh, I want to go to NYU and become a doctor or become, whatever. NYU is very expensive. If you have a passion for becoming something, by all means, take the loan and go. But if in the second semester or third semester of your undergraduate, somebody comes and asks you, what's your major? And you say that, I haven't decided yet. I don't know what my major is. You've just spent $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of student loan money. It's not coming out of your pocket. You're taking a loan. And you haven't even decided what you want to be. That's not the right approach, my dear brothers and sisters. Because that's a very expensive college party that you are going to. Very expensive. Because when it comes down to it, after you graduate, you have to pay this back. You have to pay the student loans back again. You have to think long term about all these things. So if you are not decided about what your major is, what you want to do with your life, it's okay. Take a year break. Nowhere is it written that it is wajib that you go from high school straight to college. Nowhere it is written that. Think about what you want to be, commit yourself to it, have an interest in what you want to do, because there is no comparison. If you take on a profession in your life that you don't like and you don't enjoy, that's the life you're going to live for the rest of your life, and you won't even enjoy it. Do something that you like. Again, you have to be mindful of the fact that I want to do something that's going to bring food on the table that I can support my family with. I can live a dignified life. It doesn't matter, my dear brothers and sisters, what other people say. And this is the most important thing. It does not matter how other people judge you. That's not important. What's important is how you judge yourself. Because you should be aware that you have been created perfectly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the measure of your worth. Because the Creator has made you perfect. People can say whatever they want. It should not be they should not become a part of you. One of the things that is so important, my brothers and sisters, that when you start not believing in yourself, you lose courage. That we call the himmat, right? You start losing courage to do the things that you want to do, to become adventurous, to try and make yourself, move forward. A lot of the people who are materially successful in this world did not just become like that because they took chances, they took risks. And sometimes the risks pay off, and that's how they become materially successful. But that's, again, not the measure of what we should measure ourselves with success. If you ask young people today what you want to be and what you want to do with your life, okay, they will come out with an answer that is, I want to be a CEO of a company, or I want to be somebody who's making, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's all material. But then again, they want to go from where they are right now to this ultimate success without going through the stages in between that. There is struggle. There is hard work that's also involved in getting to where you want to go with life. So let us learn from Sayyida Zainab. Let us learn from Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Because no matter what was done to them, no matter how humiliating, people were throwing stones at them as they were being paraded in the Bazar-e-Sham. We all know that. We know when they were being insulted. Even those who were not Muslims in the Darbar-e-Sham questioned Yazid. We talked about it last time. That these are the grandchildren of the Holy Prophet and this is how you are treating them. That's the kind of humiliation they were facing. But did it deter them from anything? No. They still stood up and they were never humiliated. Even though visually, if you were to see them in chains, if you were to see them, in their tattered and ragged clothes with all the traveling that they had to do from Kufa to Sham, they maintained their dignity. And this is what we need to learn, my dear brothers and sisters. Because dignity does not come from how other people view you, how other people measure you. Dignity and self-esteem come from within ourselves. We have to start giving value to ourselves. I'm an honest man, that's valuable. I'm a charitable person, that's valuable. I deal with people in my business in an honest way, that's valuable. I don't deceive, I don't cheat. I have a good relationship with my family. I'm trying to raise good children. These are the things that I need to, what is wrong with my life? Nothing. But I don't own $1 million mansion. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't matter. I don't drive an expensive car, doesn't matter. My value, my measurement of myself is whatever I have achieved is of value to me, and this is the path that I want to be on. I have to connect myself at the end of the day with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah says in the second stage that I balance them, sabwaytuhu, it is basically this balance that Allah has created between the teeny life, the animalistic instinct that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within us, and then the ruhi, the spiritual requirements that we have. This world has to be lived in the balanced way between the animalistic creation, the jahalat type of things, versus the spiritual, the ruhani type of things, that have been created. Our A'imma alayhi salatu wasalam have emphasized this in so many places. And let me cite a couple of hadiths, if you will recite aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala. Our sixth Imam, he says, a believer must never disgrace himself. A believer shall never look down at himself. We live in a world right now where if you are somebody who observes your religion, if you are known to be, even within the Muslim community, forget about outside the Muslim community. You fast, you do the things, you wear a hijab and whatnot. People will come and say, oh, this is a mullah family, or this is some kind of a religious family. And it's not said in a positive way. Somehow it's insulting. So we have to kind of, compromise ourselves and our beliefs in that sense. So Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that a believer must never disgrace himself. Then he was asked by someone how this disgrace comes out. So Imam as-Sadiq replies, by going out of his way to obtain that which is beyond his control. Our abilities, my dear brothers and sisters, are limited. So if we go and if we think that I will only consider myself successful if I become such and such and such a thing, and that such and such a thing is beyond my ability to achieve, Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam is saying that when you start chasing something that you are unable to achieve, you are now going to disgrace yourself. And he said that he ends up disgracing himself. Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam says. And Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He says that a lifetime of honor can never compensate for an hour of disgrace. All the honors that you can, in life, and 1 hour of disgrace can completely, eliminate that. And finally, again, Amirul Mu'minin says that he who discloses his shortcomings to others resigns himself to disgrace. Many a times, when people will come, and talk about your abilities and whatnot, if you are unable to do it, say, this is really out of my scope. I can do something else, but I can't. Be positive. But if you become one of those kinds of people and say, oh, you know what, and humiliate yourself, and because of your shortcomings, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam said, don't do that. Don't reveal your shortcomings to other people. Always remain dignified, because if you do that, you will end up disgracing yourself. My dear brothers and sisters, that despite all this humiliation and everything that Imam Hussein alayhi salam faced on the day of Ashura, despite the humiliation that Sayyidah Zainab and our fourth Imam had to go through, and you can imagine this journey from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham, we talked about it last time. As I said again, they never let themselves get disgraced, and they stood up for themselves. Look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded them, or how He looked at this, the entire perspective. Today, if you go on YouTube and you type in Arba'een Karbala 2023, more than, they say 25 million, they say 30 million, but millions of people are marching to go to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So all that trotting over the horses over his dead body and carrying the heads of the shuhada on the spear did nothing to them. Look at what's happening 1400 years after. So we need to have this perspective in our minds, my dear brothers and sisters, that despite anybody's attempt to humiliate us, insult us, downgrade us, as long as we hold on to that rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to the ayah of the Quran, okay, humiliation will never come to us, because at the end of the day, وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who honors. And any kind of dishonor comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at what's happened to Yazid and Muawiyah and Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad and so on and so forth. Where are they? Who's even talking? We are talking about them from the minbar, but not in a praising kind of a way. But look at what has happened with Abu Abdullah and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Only a few days ago on a night like this, according to some riwayat, on the 15th of Safar, and some riwayat on the 20th of Safar, in the Kharaba-e-Sham, in the Zindan-e-Sham, the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam were in prison there. And Sayyidah Sakina, was trying to sleep. And as she was trying to sleep, just like any 3-year-old, 4-year-old girl, she was thinking about her father. And she was dreaming about her father. And she started to cry. The sound, the voice of her cry gradually started to get louder and louder and louder. So much so that Yazid, who was sleeping inside his palace, heard the crying of Sayyidah Sakina. He sends an inquiry out, and he says, what's going on? Who is this crying? Somebody comes to Yazid and says, it's the daughter of Abu Abdullah. She's waking up in the middle of the night, or during the night sometime, and she's wailing, she's remembering her father, and she's asking, for her father in her lamentation and in her mourning. So Yazid says, send her father to her. Her father was not alive. How was he going to send the father of Sayyidah Sakina to her? So they say that they put the severed holy head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on a plate, covered it up with some cloth, and one of the slaves or one of the workers inside the palace was asked to go and deliver this head to Sayyidah Sakina. The door of the Zindan opens, and a man or a person enters with the head of Sakina. And there's a question, what is it? And the person said, I brought your father. And when you look at the plate and the clothes, the piece of cloth that was covering the head, it looked like somebody was bringing some food to the Zindan. And she started to lament again. She said, I did not ask for any food. I asked for my Baba. I asked for my father. And as the plate was, and when the cloth was removed from it, she saw the head of her father. Sakina immediately jumped and hugged the head of her father. And he says to her, Ya Abba, Ya Baba, what has happened to you? Who has put blood all over your beard? Who has treated you in the way that they have treated you? Oh, my father, who has made me a yatim? And she started to cry and lament and cry and lament. Eventually what happens is Sayyidah Sakina, there was a quiet in the Zindan of Sham. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam stands up and he goes over, and the narrations say, and we can always imagine, that the head of the father of Sayyidah Sakina was in her arms. She must have hugged it. It was probably against her chest, and she had fallen quiet. And we can imagine that Imam went and must have shaken her, Sakina, wake up. Sakina, wake up. And there was no movement. And eventually, Imam must have said, that Sakina was no longer responding. And he gave out a cry, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That Sayyidah Sakina was no longer living, and she had passed away. And then there was a call to call somebody to come and give ghusl to the body of Sakina. And it is said in narrations that the woman who came to wash and shroud the body of Sakina saw all kinds of signs on her body of somebody who had been whipped, somebody who had been beaten, somebody who had been tortured. Eventually, this Kafila leaves Karbala and they go towards to Medina via Karbala. And on the day of Arba'een, my dear brothers and sisters, one of the things that Sayyida Zainab was lamenting about and crying about as she fell on the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, she says, "Oh my dear brother, that amanat, that thing that you had given to me, and that thing that you had trusted me, that you had given me this amanat and said, please take care of my daughter. Oh my brother, I failed in my mission. I have left her in the Zindan of Sham. I have left her, when we are going to Medina, and she is going to be all by herself in the Zindan of Sham. Ala la'natullahi ala qawmi zalimin."
ذکر مصیبت برای دوستان